Just to let you know, I'm still alive. I haven't done a video on YouTube for... Stop the alarm first. I haven't done a video on YouTube on this channel for a month, and I'm getting a few messages from people saying, are you alright? So yeah, I'm alright. Still alive, still working. At the moment I'm heat treating some 01 knife blanks. I'm waiting for the correct soak time. I like to soak the 01 for a little while. I've got a block of steel in the kiln which I use for preheating my oil. My oil is here. That's my quench tank there. So I'm going to get that piece of hot steel out now. It is over 800 degrees centigrade, and I'm going to warm my oil up. So here goes. So that's the hot steel pre-warming the oil. If I pull that steel out now, it could flash and I could have a fire, but I'll let a little bit out and you'll see it smoking. That's the temperature of that. Yeah, do it again. Yeah, it's really hot, and if you don't let it cool down enough before you pull the steel out, that could generate a fire. It's basically called the fire triangle, which is fuel, heat and air. See, it's not smoking so much now, it's cooled down, so it won't, now it wouldn't flash, it would just smoke. There's not enough heat to ignite it. So I'm just going to let that bring the oil up to temperature. Then I'll get the blades out. So that's got the oil nice and warm. The blades have been soaking there for a nice length of time now, about 25 minutes. I'm not going to go into that. People often say, oh, why did you soak them for so long? 01 and alloy tool steel, you can soak it, believe me, as long as you don't overheat it. It benefits from a good soak. Right, I'm going to pull the blades out. In here I've got 4 classics and 2 camp knives. Please note, from the kiln to the oil is very fast. I don't want any drop in temperature. I want it to quench straight away. If you delay, if you're slow in doing that, you don't get full hardness. It's really important to remove from the kiln into the oil as fast as you can. And then once it's in the oil, a bit of agitation, that breaks up the vapour barrier. So I'm using the full length from the tank. I'll lift the pommel out, you're probably going to get a bit of smoke. And hopefully that should be hand holdable now. So I dropped it from 800 down to hand holdable in just a few seconds. Yeah. Still a bit warm. Hand holdable. So that's it, quenched. That goes into a warm place to rest whilst I get the other blades out. So I've got a warm rack above the kiln. Let's get another one out. By immediately submerging the blade under the oil, you collapse the fire triangle, because remember the fire triangle is air, oxygen, fuel, oil and heat, the hot knife blade. So take away one of those elements and you don't get a fire. And you do, to take away one of those elements, you submerge it into the oil. So you've already, well, what you've done then, you've eliminated the air, the oxygen from the equation, and it can't catch fire. By quenching the whole blade and the handle like that, also you end up with a straighter blade as well, with less need to correct any warp afterwards. Sometimes I'll do that, and invariably those blades will warp more than if you put the whole knife in, I find. But I've got no problem in correcting warps afterwards. I find it very easy to do. I've got a method that I've developed over the years, so it doesn't matter if they come out warped. But generally, if you put them in like that, you'll get nice straight quenches. Next one, I'll quench it by keeping the handle out, and then you'll see there will be a fire. Says he. Yeah, there you go, look. There's your fire. Quenching that way is fine, but there is a chance this blade will have warped slightly more than the others. But as I say, that's not a problem. I've learnt over the years good techniques to straighten those minor warps out, basically by clamping them all together in the temper cycle, clamping them straight, and a couple of temper cycles and you generally get them straight. Well, there's the blades after they've been quenched. They're all black, and there'll be a little bit of scale, even though there was anti-scale compound on there. There will be a little bit of scale to remove, not much. So I'm going to degrease them. The best way I found to degrease them, plenty of washing up detergent and hot water. To quickly clean the blades up after the quench, obviously they've been degreased as you saw earlier. That's how the blade comes out after it's been degreased. I use this large diameter wheel, and I quickly spin the blade over that on a 220 grit to remove any scale. You've got to be very, very careful not to round over the tip. That's one of the reasons why I do it at this stage, clean the blades up at this stage, because I've already knocked the 90s off. That's all I do. And then along there I should do all my Rockwell tests, and then when I then grind my bevel, any discrepancies will be taken out with that bevel grind. So it's a tricky process, but with a bit of muscle memory you can grind fairly accurately. You can see I've gone right to the very end there, and I've not rounded off the pommel area, and I've not rounded the tip off. But also I flatten the blade. Further on in the knife build I use a block of corian and I use an abrasive grit, and I flatten the blade. I make sure it's truly flat. There might be a micro warps in that. That gets taken out in the heat, in the temper cycle next. But after I've tempered them, I flatten the blades off. So I've just got to do this one now. I just used a satin wheel to smooth out any of the sort of scratch marks left from the 220 grit, because when I go on to Rockwell test, the smoother that area is, the more accurate my reading will be. This is the view from the workshop window. It's looking very stormy out there. Here we are at the Rockwell tester. We're going to test now for that as quenched hardness. So I load the knife onto the anvil, apply the preload, and we're looking for 65 or higher on the Rockwell C scale, which is the outer scale. Let's see where we're at. So as you can see, we're well over 65 HRC. When you look at the blades in the same orientation, in other words both like that, they look quite flat when you put them together, but they both warp the same way. In fact, most knives will warp a little bit in heat treat, and if you put them the other way round, then you'll be able to see that warp. It's quite marked. So what I do now, I stack all my blades counter warp to each other. And these have all been stacked counter warped, and then they're clamped together against a flat piece of steel, and they're tempered, and that will eliminate most of the warpage. So there's the blades all clamped up now. It looks ugly, but trust me, the end result will be straight blades. You might not get them completely straight with the first temper cycle, it may take 2, but these will go through 3 temper cycles now. So into the temper oven they go. The oven's been preheated. This is an old belling oven, and I control it with a PID, which is very, extremely accurate to within 1 degree centigrade, and they'll stay in there for the temper cycles. And this is all done in as quick a time as you possibly can after you've quenched. Well, here's a blade up close that I finished. This is a tapered tang, and I just like to point out the transitions. I like to get a nice crisp grind with using the wheel to clean up knives. You've got to be very careful not to round over that. So this is all finished by hand, and on the wheel, if you remember back earlier in the video when I was cleaning up after the quench, I always just grind the 90s off, and then I put it on the wheel, and then any roll over here, when I grind the bevel, it takes that discrepancy out, and so you end up with a very clean transition like that. Also, the blade's been flatted out with a piece of corian and abrasive hand rubbing process that I go through to eliminate any micro warps. Well, I'll end this video with a bit of warts and all. I don't really like putting myself on camera like this. When you're on YouTube, you kind of are inviting people into your personal space up to a point. I've been struggling a little bit with my left eye the last few weeks. It seems to have got worse. This is a result of a type of brain tumour that I had and still have. Actually, I had surgery to remove the tumour a number of years ago, and it paralysed my face. to help my eyesight, they put this gold weight in my eye, and it has undoubtedly saved my eye. But what's happened over the last few months, it's decided to suddenly swell up, and this has closed my eyelid down. I can still open it, but I'm not, it's weak, and when I do open the eye and I look out of the eye, it's very blurry. The vision in the eye is not very good at all, and I think this is due to the eye just not being worked properly over the last few months. So I visited my GP recently. She's referred me to the hospital, and I'm hoping to have some surgery. I think they're going to remove the gold weight. The good thing is that when I had the surgery, well, the bad thing, the legacy of that was that it paralysed my face. The good thing is that I do have some movement come back in the face now all these years later. So I'm hoping that the blink reflex that I've got in that eye will be sufficient, and if it is sufficient, then they will remove the weight. If it's not sufficient, then I'm going to have to struggle on as best I can. But the last few weeks have been a bit of a struggle with general getting through things with this ridiculous weight in my eye. But I'm hopeful, fingers crossed. You know, I'm an active person, and this is just impeding me just a little bit too much at the moment. So, as I say, fingers crossed they'll be able to help me out, and we can go on from there. So with that, I'll say thanks for watching. No knives available this week, but as you can see, I've got a large number of knives on the go, and these should be surfacing over the next 2 or 3 weeks as I build them up and complete them. I've got level work to do, I've got handles to fit, wood to stabilise, etc. So still quite a bit of work to do, but we will soldier on. Anyway, with that, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.